Another edition of Founder Wisdom Podcast with someone that is quite special today. Gene Eidelman is his name. Has an interesting background, which we're going to jump into, but he's the co-founder at Azure Printed Home. So hopefully he can answer my $500 house vision that I gave myself 20 years to implement. He is also the co-founder of Azure Construction. So love to have him on the pod today. Gene, welcome to the pod. Tell us a bit more about yourself, your background, and your companies.
Sure. Thank you, Charles. Pleasure to be here. So when I was 18, I was a refugee from former Soviet Union. I actually lived in Kiev in Ukraine and came to the United States. So I was very fortunate to get here. Actually, shortly after I came here, I was involved in resettlement of some 6,000 refugees. Who would have thought that 30 years later, the resettlement of refugees from Ukraine is going to be a again thing? Just would never thought that, but really consider myself very lucky that me and all of our family came here. Still have high school friends who have been staying in touch with. Just very unfortunate what's going on there. A little bit more about the company. So I've been construction, either development or construction, most of my adult life. And 4 years ago, together with my business partner, we started Azure Construction. Both of us been building buildings in the US, but also all over the world. He is originally from England, and I built buildings in addition to the US and Middle East and India and the UK. And so the goal was to find ways to build faster, cheaper, and with less environmental impact. And then 6 months later, we were in COVID. So, and we really actually give credit to the fact that we had more time. There we were. Most of our employees worked virtually or on site, since we were just sitting in the office and wondering how we're gonna implement this vision. Especially during COVID, we did residential construction, so we're building backyards of homes where people were at home, and so that made it even more difficult because now my customers were telling me who is not showing up or why things are not going as well. So our first idea was we got to build it in a factory, and of course, factory built housing is a well-established business. But when we looked into that, a lot of it had to do with bringing things from overseas, and there was the supply chain totally broken. We said, how can we build in a factory and not rely on shipping things from overseas? And that's how we come to 3D printing. So 3D printing been around for now a few years, most of it cement based. So building with cement on site. And that didn't meet our third vision, was environmental impact. Cement is terrible for the environment. For every pound of cement, you generate 0.92 pounds of CO2. But we said, is there any other way to do it? So over the last really 3 years, we figured out how to use material that's primarily recycled plastic. We add a bunch of other things to make it meet our criteria. And in May of this year, just within the last couple of months, started production of homes. We make them in the factory. It takes us 1 day to print a shell. It takes 4 to 7 days to finish everything else. And we're shipping product primarily in California now, but have orders from 20 other states.
Very impressive. What are the costs on that? Because it takes the printer like 1 day to print the whole base. I would call it like that. Is it costly to have it run? What about the materials? Is there an ROI on it? And do you feel the costs are going to lower?
Much lower. Basically with one print, we replace 6 different trades. We use no lumber. We use no roofing. There is no metal. There is no waterproofing. There is no sheathing. So basically, not only we save a lot of money on material because the recycled plastic is a lot less expensive than everything I just mentioned, but also on labor. And with lack of shortage of labor, shortage of qualified labor, what normally would take us, just for the similar house, would take us 2 months to do, we accomplish in 1 day. So huge savings in labor and material. On the cost side, of course, the equipment is very expensive, but we achieve 30% saving in cost by the time you take all the saving and add the additional cost of the equipment.
Is it costly because of the recycled and ESG plastic, or would normal plastic cost less?
No, actually, it's a saving. It is cheaper to have recycled plastic. So the material itself is less expensive. It is just, new plastic is available everywhere. To have our combination of recycled plastic, we had fiberglass and we had carbon fiber, then we had additives like fire resistant, UV stabilizer. So to add all those things, it's not easily available. So there is some additional cost of shipping material from a factory that does it for us. But listen, environmentally, it just, if people want to go to Mars, I actually like Earth.
Same here.
And so I like the idea of just using waste here so we have a beautiful environment here, and we're
Right.
making a huge contribution. Look, to make one little module for a backyard studio, we use equivalent of 100,000 empty water bottles. If we
100%.
wouldn't use it, it would be in landfills and in the ocean. So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
it makes me, every time one of our units leave the factory, it makes me feel good because we just reused tons of material.
Yeah. And you go to the beach and you see plastic and you're like, oh, my business is like building bottles of plastics, and you see these plastic at the beach. How does that make you feel? Must feel pretty bad as an executive. Um, I'm seeing also, yeah, the weight. Does it weight a lot? Because then you need to transport it to the site, right? So is that a big cost?
Much lighter. It's about half the weight, so it's much easier to transport it and then to install it. Yeah, in some sites we can just pick it up with a forklift from the truck and install it. But if we need to take a crane over the building, it's not a big deal. I mean, it weighs kind of the weight of it is like similar to the weight of the jacuzzi, So there are
Okay.
plenty of people who install jacuzzis, in the backyard. So it doesn't require a big crane.
And as resistant to external events, the weather, the wind, earthquakes, all of that.
Yeah, good question. So the fact that we are general contractors, we're different from many people who are in this business. What we find is a lot of three people who are experts in robotics or 3D printing who are trying to figure out how to use it for construction. We went the other way. We know the end result. So before we started printing, our first thing we did computerize the testing to make sure that it's resistant to wind, snow loads, since you're from Montreal, earthquakes. We're here in California, so we wanted to make sure that the units will withstand all these extreme events, and only then. And of course, a lot of our customers are installing these units in the desert, so can withstand big temperature changes. So we really looked at it from the very beginning. How are we going to get the permit for this thing? And then last year worked with International Construction Code Organization called ICC to develop acceptance criteria. We basically worked with them to figure out how are they going to evaluate us and people who are going to come behind us on whether the material can withstand all of the requirements. So yeah, it was a long process, but it was a very good one because only when you start thinking about it and you have a third party looking, not only just doing what you want to do, but have somebody from the outside looking at what the idea is. The reality is, recycled plastic has been used in a lot of automotive, aerospace, a lot of the interiors of planes and cars, some exteriors of cars. So it wasn't like starting from scratch. So it's been used in industry, just nobody for some reason thought of using it for construction.
Right. Then, as the end customer, do I save if my house is 3D printed? How far away are we from actually saving from buying that solution?
Yeah. Oh, just like it cost us 30% less to build, it will cost you 30% less to buy, if you compare it to comparable products. So, our 2-bedroom, 900 square feet house is 200,000. I've built plenty of them, and nothing cost me under 300,000. So there is a real saving right away. So yeah.
Interesting. So, how far away are we from my $500 house vision?
I hate to break this to you. Yeah, the you know, to it really is. It's really still costs money because just to print the shell, we achieve some savings, but we still need plumbing, electric, wiring. There are still so many of the I mean, we achieve a lot of saving in about 1/3 of what the cost is. The rest of the items are still in place. We're seeing some substantial savings. Uh, and again, we haven't used it yet, but we're playing with the idea because we're getting contacts whenever there is an emergency. Like we've talked about with a number of people from Turkey. They've lost some 400,000 homes during an earthquake, and they're looking to rebuild. And so when you look at the cost, just making it somewhere far away and shipping it, the shipping cost will eat up a lot of this. So big savings will accomplish. So basically, our proposal was, look, why don't we license our technology for you so you can, because plastic is everywhere, right? But if you were to bring the 3D printers to the site or closer to where the need is, that would reduce the cost. And then even in our application, we will reduce the cost as we increase the volume of our production, because right now we're paying retail for doors and windows. But as we increase the production, the cost will come down. So it's really two things. It's a volume of just acceptance by the market, and secondly, distance. So yeah, if you want to set up a factory near you, it'll require just $1 million investment, but then the cost of the house will come down. Yeah.
Right. Talking about that, you were mentioning that VC money is quite harsh to come by nowadays. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, last 12 months have been really, really difficult. And we just ended up being scrappy. Again, that's where previous experience, and it's twofold. It's believing in what you're doing, and secondly, just not accepting a no. We've been rejected by over 100 investors, and we've been selective who we showed it to. So you basically have a plan A and plan B and C, so back in last summer when we couldn't secure funding, at that time there was quite a bit of risk because at that time we just printed one model, so there were a lot of still answers. There was no testing done, there was no production, so that was understandable. So we started the crowdfunding campaign. But then as we got into the fall, by this time we printed the second model and we got the testing done, and we still, just the timing was wrong. It helped that, I never looked at it as a personal defeat, and I have a younger partner, and I said, look, it's not us, it's a market, and so we're just going to continue to go at it. And so we went to angel investors who either understand real estate or understand sustainability or understand the robotics. So I mean, we kind of check off a lot of boxes in different industries. So we found people from all those industries. So recycling, robotics, real estate developers, real estate brokers, people who do glamping resorts. So we really try to just, if we can't raise a big chunk of money from one investor, we went to different investors. We're now close to 900 investors, and we've raised $1.4 million, but it wasn't like, a couple of years ago, you'd have gone to one fund and raised $3 million. Now we've gone, and we have a campaign now at republic.com/Azure, where we're raising, this is our third crowdfunding campaign. And our valuation's gone up. Our investors are our biggest ambassadors. I mean, because they know the product from understanding how we do it. And many of them, first of all, many of them are customers. Many of them are referring other, like just earlier today, there was a post. I live in LA, but there's a post from somebody in LA that said, this is Mayor of LA phone number. Call her. She needs a solution for housing for the unhoused, and your product is perfect. So I think what's been the most satisfying is, listen, a year and a half ago or 3 years ago, if you were to tell me that we're going to raise money crowdfunding, I would say, You're kidding. I mean, no way. But when you need the money and you really believe in the idea and you have the customers, then you just say, I'll do whatever it takes to raise the money, you know? And so what really like I'm not a good example is like I'm not a glamper. You know, we know what glamping is glamorous camping. You know, I came from Ukraine. I like a 5-star hotel now, you know. There are people who love glamping, especially during COVID. You know, they go in the middle of wilderness, and we have now 3 large customers for glamping resorts. I didn't promote to that market. They just saw the solution. They saw the way our units look, and they said, "Wow, this is cool. You know, it would work." That's what I'm getting the most fun out of this. People go on the website or walk through our warehouse, and they see what we have, and they have their own idea. It's like this is an example of perfect product market fit, where you come up with a product, and then customers find you, you know, and they can't live without that. That I've started other businesses before, and generally entrepreneurs start a business because they have an idea, they think, you know, either from their past experience that they know what to use for, and then they try to sell it. In this business, it's been unique that we came up with some designs, put on a website, and people are calling us. We spend under $10,000 on marketing, and it's all came from social media, influencers, podcasts, so on and so forth.
Love it. Yeah, you could also market to ESG and sustainability folks that had exits, or rich construction guys that retired. I had a joke also, like you could add AI to your company name. That would give you a bunch of investment. Nowadays, you know.
I mean, you know, I actually, my oldest son works for Google, and I told him the same thing. Why am I using AI? And he said, don't do it. You know, AI is so expensive. There's so many companies pouring billions into this. We don't need AI. We just have a good old, you know, a robot with an extruder that's making homes downstairs here, and we have plenty of demand. So there is no reason to, I
Yeah, you
mean,
have
to
enough
add
hard
something that's
problems to solve. Related to glamping, the last question I had for you is, how far are we from 3D printing on site, like not in between 4 walls, but like literally printing a house in the middle of nowhere? That would be
yeah,
quite
Charles.
attractive for glamping.
Yeah, it's happening now. So there are companies who 3D printing with the cement. For our application, it really wouldn't work because we need to control the temperature for the printing. And we find that there is a lot of savings. So yeah, on one hand, there is cost of transportation, but if it rains or too cold or too hot, we don't stop. And we work now 24/7. We literally work 3 shifts. So we're able to work in the controlled environment. So yeah, 3D printing with cement can be done on site. The only way you can do it on site, because the buildings are so heavy, you wouldn't be able to transport them. But for our application, it'll always be in the factory. Now we could do a pop-up. We could print in a tent. We could do a pop-up factory next to a large project and then just move over. Yeah.
Right. Where can people find out more about you, Gene, and your companies?
Sure. So azureprinthomes.com is our website. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. And if you're interested to really join our journey, it's republic.com/Azure.